All right, let's dive into a story that has everything. We're talking sibling rivalry, false accusations, literal divine intervention, and a resurrection cycle so wild it makes modern fantasy look, well, kinda tame. And no, this isn't the latest streaming series. It's an Egyptian myth from over 3,000 years ago.
So how do we even know this story? Well, it comes to us from this incredible artifact, the Papyrus D'Orbiney. It was written down sometime around 1200 BC, during the reign of Pharaoh Seti II, and today it sits in the British Museum. This is our tangible link, our physical connection to this ancient tale. So what exactly is written on it?
Here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get into the family drama with a brother's betrayal. Then, things get pretty magical in the resurrection cycle. After that, we'll try to decode what it all means in Secrets of the Pharaohs. And finally, we'll look at the story's incredible influence in an ancient story's legacy.
All right, part one, a brother's betrayal. This is where it all kicks off. We start with a simple family dynamic that is about to be completely, and I mean completely, shattered. So meet our main guys. You've got Anpu, the older, married brother. And then there's Bata, his younger, super hardworking brother. Picture this, they're living a pretty idyllic life, working the fields together, raising cattle. Everything is going great. But, that peace is not going to last. And here it is. This is the moment that lights the fuse. One day, Anpu's wife decides to make a move on Bata. This single act is the catalyst for the entire saga of betrayal and revenge that's about to unfold. Bata, being a loyal brother, is horrified and immediately rejects her. Well, she doesn't take that well, so what does she do? She flips the entire story on its head. She runs to her husband Anpu and tells him this horrible lie, claiming that Bata was the one who came onto her and that he attacked her. Now, what's so cool here is how the ancient text describes Anpu's reaction. It doesn't just say he got mad. No, it says he became like an upper Egyptian panther. That imagery is so specific, it just gives you this visceral sense of a primal, uncontrollable rage that completely takes him over. And Anpu, he doesn't ask questions. He doesn't even think to get Bata's side of the story. He just grabs his dagger and hides, waiting to murder his own brother. Bata, completely clueless, returns from the fields and is forced to run for his life, with his enraged brother right behind him. So just as Anpu is about to catch him, Bata cries out a prayer to the sun god Re-Harakakti to save him. And guess what? The god answers, boom! A giant lake teeming with crocodiles just appears out of nowhere between them. It finally gives Bata a second to catch his breath and try to explain what really happened. And from across this crocodile-infested lake, Bata yells his innocence, and then he makes this incredibly strange promise. He tells Anpu he's going away to the Valley of Cedars, and that he's going to place his heart on the flower of a cedar tree. The deal is, if that tree is ever cut down, his heart will fall and he will die. It's like this bizarre, magical failsafe. Now, to really prove his innocence, Bata does something truly shocking. He mutilates himself right there and throws his severed genitalia into the lake where a fish eats them. I know, it's intense. But this extreme act finally snaps Anpu out of his rage, and he realizes the truth. Heartbroken, Anpu goes home, kills his lying wife, and starts mourning for the brother he's now lost.
Okay, so let's get into the next part, because if you thought that was strange, well, you haven't seen anything yet. We are now entering the resurrection cycle, where the story takes a sharp turn into the supernatural. So Bata's now living all alone in this valley of cedars. The gods, looking down, see his loneliness and they feel sorry for him. So the creator god, Khnum, literally crafts a wife for him on his potter's wheel. And she is described as being more beautiful than any woman on earth, a perfect divine companion. But here we go again. The scent of her hair travels all the way down the river to the pharaoh's court. He becomes absolutely obsessed, sends his men to find her, and brings her back to be his wife. And, just like the first wife, she betrays Bata. She tells the pharaoh his one weakness, the secret of his heart, hidden on top of that cedar tree.
Yeah, she wants her old husband gone for good. So she convinces the pharaoh to send soldiers to the Valley of Cedars with one mission: chop down that specific tree. They do it, his heart falls, and in that same exact instant, miles away, Bata drops dead. But death is just the start of the next chapter. His brother Anpu finds his heart, puts it in water, and Bata is resurrected. He then turns into a giant, magnificent bull and goes to the palace to confront his wife. So she has the bull killed.
but 2 drops of its blood fall to the ground and instantly grow into 2 massive trees. So she has the trees cut down, but a tiny splinter flies from the wood, lands in her mouth, and she becomes pregnant. She gives birth to a son who is, yep, you guessed it, their reborn Bata.
So what on earth is going on here? This isn't just some crazy random story. And that brings us to part 3, Secrets of the Pharaohs. This myth is absolutely packed with cultural and political symbolism that would have been obvious to an ancient Egyptian.
See, this whole tale is really exploring some huge ideas in their society. It's all about kingship and divinity, about the very complicated rules of who gets to be the next pharaoh, and about the constant tension between the 2 halves of Egypt itself.
Hey, remember that line about the Upper Egyptian panther? Well, that wasn't just a random bit of flavor. In ancient Egypt, Upper Egypt in the south was seen as the source of raw, wild, untamed power. Lower Egypt in the north was the established kingdom. So calling his rage panther-like immediately tells the audience this is a primal, uncontrolled fury. And this is a perfect example of something called the euhemeristic theory. That's just a fancy way of saying that sometimes myths aren't just myths, they're rooted in real history. Some scholars think this story might actually be about a real succession crisis that happened after Pharaoh Merneptah died, when Seti II's claim to the throne was challenged. The story could have been a piece of political propaganda to make his rule seem legitimate.
All right, finally, let's talk about this story's incredible afterlife. Because this isn't just some obscure myth collecting dust. It's actually a foundational text for a lot of world literature.
Now, does this plot point sound at all familiar? A married woman tries to seduce an honorable young man. He says no, so she runs to her powerful husband and falsely accuses him of assault. It is the exact same plot as the biblical story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife, which was written down centuries later.
In fact, this story is so foundational that folklorists actually have a name for it. It's one of the earliest known examples of what they call tale type ATU 318, the faithless wife. That basically means this is one of the oldest fairy tales in the entire world, a blueprint for stories we've been telling for thousands of years.
And that kind of brings us full circle. In the end, Bata becomes pharaoh, he appoints his older brother Anpu as his heir, and they rule together in peace. But the story leaves us with this big question. After more than 3 millennia, from ancient papyrus to modern blockbusters, why are we still so obsessed with these same themes? Betrayal, incredible rebirth, and ultimate revenge. Maybe the answer says more about us than it does about the ancient Egyptians.